Someone walks up to you smiling, confident, like they know you well. And instantly your stomach drops. You know their face. You know where you met. You remember the conversation. You even remember how they made you feel. But their name? Nothing. Your mind goes completely blank. And in those few seconds, panic takes over. You hope they don't notice. You pray someone else says their name first. You try to survive the conversation without exposing yourself. Because forgetting someone's name feels rude. It feels personal. It makes you wonder if maybe you're careless. Or worse, if you're bad with people. You start questioning yourself. How can I remember useless details from 10 years ago, but forget the name of someone standing right in front of me? Why does my brain fail at the exact moment I need it most? And maybe the worst part is the guilt. Because forgetting a name feels like forgetting a person. It feels like proof that maybe you weren't paying enough attention. But what if that's not true? What if forgetting names has very little to do with bad memory? And much more to do with how your mind was trained to survive? Because some people remember names. Others remember energy. Some remember labels. Others remember feelings. And if you've always remembered how people made you feel, more than what they were called, this may explain more about you than you expect. Most people think remembering names is a sign of attention. If you forget names, they assume you weren't listening, that you were distracted, disinterested, careless. But for many people, that's not true at all. Some minds don't organize life through names. They organize it through emotional signals. They remember who felt safe, who felt cold, who made them nervous, who made them feel understood, who drained their energy before saying much at all. Their brain stores emotional meaning first, not names. That's why you can forget someone's name after 10 minutes. But remember exactly how uncomfortable you felt sitting next to them. You forget the introduction, but remember their tone. You forget the label, but remember the tension. You forget the word, but remember the warning your body felt. Because your attention was never really on identity. It was on emotional reading, especially if you grew up in environments where reading people mattered. Some people were taught names. Others were taught moods. They learned to notice silence, facial expressions, changes in tone, emotional distance, the feeling in a room before anyone said a word. They learned that survival sometimes depended on noticing what wasn't being said. And when your mind is trained like that, names often become background noise. Not because people don't matter, because emotions arrive louder. Some people walk into a room and notice introductions. Others walk into a room and immediately scan for tension. Who feels safe? Who feels unstable? Who needs space? Who might reject them? Who is pretending to be okay? That kind of attention becomes automatic. You don't choose it. Your nervous system does. And that brings us to another reason people forget names so easily. Anxiety. Because anxiety is expensive. It steals attention before attention even begins. When someone introduces themselves, some people are fully present. But others are fighting an invisible battle inside their own mind. They're thinking, do I sound awkward? Am I talking too much? Did that joke feel weird? Do they like me? Am I making a bad impression? Should I say more? Should I say less? While all of that is happening internally, the name passes by quietly and disappears. Not because they didn't care, because their mind was overloaded. Social situations that look simple from the outside can feel like performances on the inside. And under pressure, the brain prioritizes threat over detail. It remembers embarrassment faster than information. That's why people with anxious minds often replay moments for hours. The handshake, the eye contact, the weird silence, the sentence they wish they had said differently. They remember the mistake they think they made. They remember how exposed they felt. But the name? It never had a chance. Especially for people who are highly self-aware. When too much attention is pointed inward, small external details get lost. They're not absent. They're hyper-aware. Just in survival mode. And later, when they realize they forgot your name, they don't laugh about it. They feel ashamed. Because they assume forgetting means failure. They think it proves they're socially bad. But often, it simply means their nervous system was too busy trying to protect them. Sometimes this pattern starts much earlier than adulthood. Sometimes it starts in childhood. If you grew up around emotional unpredictability, your brain learned something very early. Pay attention to people. Not to connect. To stay safe. You learned to read moods before words. You noticed who was angry before they spoke. Who was disappointed before they admitted it. Who needed space. Who was about to explode. You became good at sensing emotional weather. Because sometimes, knowing the mood of the room mattered more than anything else. Children in emotionally unstable environments often become adults who can read people instantly. They notice energy shifts most people miss. They can feel discomfort before it becomes visible. They know when someone is lying, when someone is holding resentment, when someone is emotionally unavailable. But ask them for names, and suddenly nothing, because their mind was trained for protection, not social performance. Their brain learned safety first, details later, and sometimes details never came. This creates a strange kind of guilt in adulthood. Because from the outside, forgetting names looks careless. People rarely see the deeper reason. They just see the mistake, not the survival pattern behind it. They don't see the child who learned to study tension. They only see the adult who forgot an introduction. And that's why forgetting names can feel strangely emotional. It's not just memory. It feels like shame. Because names are tied to identity. And when you forget someone's name, it feels like you failed them. Even if you remember everything else. You remember their divorce, their anxiety, their mother being sick, the thing they said when nobody else noticed they were struggling. You remember what mattered. You remember the emotional truth. But somehow, not the label attached to it. And that creates guilt. Because you think, if I cared enough, I would remember. But that isn't always true. Sometimes your brain simply stores meaning differently. Some people memorize information. Others memorize emotional significance. Some remember names. Others remember how someone made them feel at their lowest moment. Neither is wrong. They're just different forms of attention. And honestly, in real relationships, emotional memory often matters more. People forget exact words. They forget dates, small details, specific conversations. But they rarely forget how you made them feel. They remember who made them feel safe, who made them feel invisible, who made them feel judged, who made them feel like they finally didn't have to perform. Maybe your mind understands that better than you realize. Maybe forgetting names doesn't mean you're bad with people. Maybe it means you've spent your whole life paying attention to something deeper. Energy, tone, emotional safety, unspoken tension, presence. Maybe your brain was never bad with people. Maybe it just learned that names were never the most important part. Because for some people, connection is not built through labels. It's built through feeling. And maybe that's why you remember presence more than introductions. Not because you don't care, but because deep down, you care in a different way. You notice what most people ignore. You remember what most people miss. You feel things before they're spoken. And once you understand that, the shame starts to disappear. You stop calling yourself forgetful and start recognizing yourself as someone who feels deeply. Someone whose mind was shaped by emotional awareness. Someone who remembers people in ways that are harder to explain, but often more meaningful. So if you're someone who constantly forgets names, maybe the problem was never your memory. Maybe it was the quiet belief that you were failing at connection, when in reality, you were connecting in a completely different language. And maybe that changes everything, because sometimes understanding yourself is not about fixing the habit. It's about finally realizing you were never broken in the first place. If this explains something you've quietly judged yourself for, then maybe it was never just about names. Maybe it was about finally understanding the way your mind has always worked.